Hi, I'm the Plant Gals, and today the background is boring because we're going to be talking about what I think is one of the most underrated pet lizards. Now, one of the most popular videos on my channel is about my Kenyan Samboa macho man and why I think he is an extremely underrated pet snake and actually makes a great pet for a lot of people. I'm going to be talking about why the blue-tongued skink, my blue-tongued skink Lucille, is a very underrated pet lizard and I think is honestly not talked about enough. I do have a few disclaimers in the beginning. I don't think you should get a reptile. I don't care if you get a reptile, but I do want to talk about Lucille. And I think that you should do all your proper research. This is not a care video. This is not a care guide. I just want to talk about my lizard and why I think she's freaking awesome. On top of that, actually, Lucille is a rescue. So she came from a situation where she wasn't properly cared for. And as a result of that, she lost pretty much all of her fingers and toes as she came to me with mouth rot and also a respiratory infection, which flared really badly a few months after I got her. And basically the people who had her didn't understand how to care for her and didn't do the proper research. So in that way, she was overrated because they shouldn't have owned her. And I absolutely love her. I am so excited to talk about her. One of the things that somebody said on my Macho Man video was that if you're going to talk about a reptile, you should handle it. So this is Lucille. Now, when I got Lucille, she was like a loose noodle. Now, she's actually pretty awesome and she can sit in my hand. Now, Lucille is actually extremely friendly. She talks a lot though. She has quite the personality and she always has a lot to say. And she is very huffy. So this is her. So I love her very much. Lucille is a Merauke blue-tongued skink. When I adopted her, I was told that she is an Irian Jaya, and she isn't. You can see on her little hands where she has lost most of her toes. If you look carefully. This is her back and what her patterning looks like. She is an extremely intelligent little animal. Her favorite foods are freeze-dried mussels and, oh, here's stuff in her mouth. So yeah, her favorite foods are freeze-dried mussels. And she also really loves blueberries. I thought it would be so cute to add in this little video that just shows her eating her blueberries. She can be a little bit naughty. It's not necessarily naughty, but she actually will pick the blueberries out of her meal first. You can see that she's eaten the first two. She'll eat everything, but the blueberries are her favorite, that she'll almost always pick the blueberries out of her food before anything else. And I absolutely adore it, and I always give her a hard time for being naughty, but actually it's just so freaking adorable. I love my skinkies so much. Easily her favorite food on the entire planet is blueberries. She's very good about eating her greens, so I can start by talking about that. Blue-tongued skinks have a very varied diet. They eat a lot of different things. So when they're babies, they eat more kind of meats and insects and things as a percentage of their diet. And when they get older, they actually have a much more leafy, vegetable kind of centered diet. So Lucille eats a mix of things like arugula and Swiss chard, which I grew in my garden. She gets some like carrot pieces or bell pepper pieces mixed in with a little bit of fruit like strawberries or blueberries, which she really likes. And then I also mix in some pretty high quality cat food in her diet as well, with some supplements, because I don't think that she was properly given a lot of supplements for a long time. So she gets supplements now. Also, Lucille has a very beautifully colored belly. It's like a very nice little tangerine-y orange color. She did not come to me with the name Lucille. She came to me with the name Blue, which, like, are you kidding me? It's a very lame name. Lucille is extremely sweet, and in general, all blue-tongued skinks are like this. I think that is why they are easily one of the most underrated pet reptiles, because of how kind and sweet they are. Lucille was mistreated, and it took some work to get her to be as handleable as she is, but honestly, she's still really, like, just them in general are great. If you got one from a baby, I would imagine that it would just be even better. But I don't think there's anyone better than my sweet Lucille. Lucille is 7 years old, and she is my sweet baby girl. Honestly, everything about them is freaking sick. Just sick. I think it's fun making up her diet. I think that for most people would kind of be a downside of how complicated her diet might be, but for me, I actually think it's totally awesome and that her diet is really fun to make. I love cutting up all her little vegetables, creating these super colorful dishes. I buy her multiple different colors of carrots so that it's a little bit more interesting for her each time she eats. I really enjoy making her meals and I think it's really fun. You can hear her noises that she makes as she huffs. She's a lot huffier than other blue-tongued skinks. Typically, when they huff, they're mad. Lucille's just kind of a big talker. Now, one thing that I absolutely love about blue-tongued skinks is that they need big enclosures. I eventually will probably upgrade Lucille into a bigger enclosure at some point in time when I have a bigger place. And she's a little bit more mobile than she is right now because she's just starting to be able to fully enjoy her whole enclosure right now as somebody with a little bit of a kind of disability. But blue-tongued skinks typically, they recommend to at least be in a 4x2x2, which is what Lucille's in, but I think that I can offer bigger to her, and eventually I will. I absolutely love that they have these big enclosures and they bask all the time. So they come out and they lay on their logs. They're also kind of funky. She typically sleeps at night and is maybe more active in the afternoons and evenings. I just love her. I'm gonna put her away now. I hope you enjoyed the handling of her, but she doesn't need to be out for a super long time. I'll give you one last display of my beautiful skink Lucille. She grabs onto me like this. Well, like I said, when I got her, she couldn't even hold on to me. And I think her little belly is such a beautiful color. You can see. And this is her little face. She always gives me the nasty side eye. If you can't handle side eye, a blue-tongued skink isn't for you. Blue-tongued skinks are very intelligent, and she loves having time out of her enclosure to roam around. One thing that I do with her is because she doesn't really have any claws left, so it's very hard for her to burrow, which is a natural behavior for blue-tongued skinks. I actually have a beanbag, and she likes to burrow underneath that. And I try to facilitate burrowing kind of as I can in her enclosure with like some loose sphagnum moss and stuff like that she can actually work her way through. Now, blue-tongued skinks come in two main varieties. There are northern blue-tongued skinks, which typically come from Australia, and there are Indonesian blue-tongued skinks, which obviously they come from Indonesia. Now, Lucille is an Indonesian blue-tongued skink. She's a Merauke. And the care between an Indonesian blue-tongued skink and a northern blue-tongued skink is very, very different. So please do your research on the two. Typically, northern blue-tongued skinks like to be hotter and drier. Indonesian blue-tongued skinks still like it pretty hot, but they like it much more humid. Typically, blue-tongued skinks that are Indonesian are wild caught because Indonesia still exports a lot of animals. And it's actually, blue-tongued skinks can kind of be a little bit difficult to breed. Indonesian blue-tongued skinks is actually kind of cheaper and easier to just take them from the wild or from breeding farms in Indonesia. Now, I was told, and the rescue was told, that Lucille they got her as a baby, I think, and that was captive bred. The odds of that are pretty low, to be honest. She probably is wild caught. I can't say because I don't know. But just being honest, like that's the reality with her, is that she probably is actually wild caught. Now, northern blue-tongued skinks, the Australian ones, pretty much always captive bred, at least in North America, because Australia has very strict export laws. So they don't actually export any of their blue-tongued skinks anymore, which means that if you want a northern blue-tongued skink, it has to essentially be bred in order to get one. So Lucille is out of here now, but my cats are in here. So I'm gonna go over some of the varieties of Indonesian blue-tongued skink first, because there are quite a few really funky varieties. I mean, obviously I'm partial to Lucille, but I do really think that the Tanabar variety, I believe that's how you say it, is extremely cool. Picture. Each one has slightly different care requirements. Like I said, this is not a care video, so I'm not really gonna get into it. But there's the classical Indonesian blue-tongued skink, which I don't really know the difference with this one. I would need to do some more research. There's the Merauke, which is what Lucille is. There's an Irian Jaya. There's also the Halmahera, which is what another one that they potentially thought that maybe Lucille could be. And there is lastly a Key Island skink. There's a lot of variation in each, and it's actually kind of hard to figure out which is which. Some of the key features that people use to distinguish are whether or not they have spotted arms, the colors of their belly, and things like that. So those aren't morphs, those are locales, kind of like when I talk about my lychee gecko Dulce. Giannis geckos technically don't really have morphs. They have, my cat's being so silly. They have locales, and then there's also like breeding lines of them that show up in different kind of color lines. Blue-tongue skinks are very similar, at least the Indonesian. So in the Indonesian blue-tongue skinks, it's pretty much just based on their locality. Northern blue-tongue skinks are a whole different thing. And if I could own any other blue-tongue skink other than Lucille, who is my baby, I would love to own a shingleback skink, which is technically a variety of blue-tongue skink. You probably see the videos of them on Instagram. They are very hard to own in anywhere that isn't Australia because we do not have a very large breeding population of them. If I ever came across one, I would probably buy it. They're so cool. I would love to have one, but I don't. Australian blue-tongue skinks come in blotched, Centralian, Northern, Eastern, Pygmy, and then there's also the shingleback or the bobtail. And then lastly, there is the Western. Now, I do not know nearly as much about the Australian species of blue-tongue skink because, like I said, they're much harder to come across in Canada. But I actually wish I knew somebody that had one because they're really cool. And if I could own one, I would own the shingleback, which is so neat. But from my understanding, people breed a lot more northern blue-tongue skinks or Australian blue-tongue skinks in the States. Now, I actually learned that, sorry, you have to see this. These guys really like playing on the beanbag chair. They're so silly. If you watch my videos, you have to get used to the cats. And I love showing them. So yeah, I found out that a lot of my viewers are Americans, which is very interesting because, I mean, I would have thought that they're like Canadians like me, but maybe that's just a weird assumption to make. I don't know. But anyway, hi Americans. Hope you're doing okay. You have actually access to a lot more kind of funky varieties of blue-tongue skink and morphs. I've never really seen these available in Canada, unfortunately, but maybe you can get them and they're really neat. I wanted to talk about that. Like I said, the downsides to owning a blue-tongue skink. I think some of them are upsides, but it's up to you. They really do need a large enclosure. So I think that a 4x2x2 as a minimum is fair. However, I have a pretty disabled in terms of skinks, blue-tongue skink, and I even feel like a 4x2x2 is probably too small for her. I would honestly say that for a really in good shape blue-tongue skink, at least 6 foot long would be my choice. I'll probably try to get Lucille a 6 or an 8 foot, depending on the width that I'm able to find or build. I might build her one eventually. That is not an upcoming video because she's not quite there yet, and neither am I. But yeah, the 4x2x2, they require quite a lot of humidity. So each type of blue-tongue skink requires different. The northern still need decent humidity, but the Indonesians need quite high. The Merauke variety probably has one of the higher humidity requirements for all blue-tongue skinks. So that's very important to know. So it can be really hard to manage heat, which needs to be pretty high, UVB, humidity, the size of the enclosure, which makes all of it more complicated because as the enclosure gets bigger, it gets harder to manage all of those things, heat, humidity, making sure that there's good UVB across the whole enclosure. All of that is extremely important, okay? And like I said, I love making dinners for Lucille. I'm sure this video I've included lots of pictures of it, but that can also be something that people struggle with. So you have to be sourcing multiple different types of leafy greens, some type of other like vegetable probably to mix in, something like you can use carrots, squash. There's some great information online. I love making Lucille dinners. I think it's so fun, but that's something that can be difficult to keep all the different types of produce in your fridge, and they do need to have some different, some variety in their diet. Also, you have to give them some type of protein. It's typically agreed upon amongst blue-tongue skink keepers that the best protein you can give them is cat or dog food. I spend a lot of money on the cat food that I give my cats, so I just give them the same really high quality cat food that my cats get. Everybody in the house is getting spoiled, I guess. And then, you know, I also threw in some supplements. So I use a calcium supplement for her. And then I also just use an overall multivitamin supplement for her. So that's also a cost. And then I also sprinkle it with like some grub pie. Sometimes when I want to mix the supplements in better, I even use like some beef bone broth and like pour it over top. That's meant for my cats. My cats get it. And that just helps kind of mix everything together a little bit nicer. Also fruit. They really love fruit. You can't give them too much. It's not great for them. It'll make them all poopy, which isn't a great thing. But she freaking loves blueberries so much. So I have to keep blueberries. I don't like blueberries, and neither does my boyfriend. Neither of us eat them. But Lucille likes blueberries, and they're actually kind of expensive where I live, but I buy blueberries because my skink likes blueberries. And sometimes she gets strawberries because I really like strawberries, and sometimes I run out of blueberries, so she gets strawberries because I almost always have strawberries in the house. That's a lot. And you know, also occasionally they will enjoy things like pinky mice. I have given her pinky mice because, like, you know, I feed them to my snake and my hedgehog. Sometimes she'll get a freeze-dried mussel, which I give to my cats because in the wild a lot of them eat snails, and I think the mussels are great because it can kind of like simulate that shell, like that crunch of the shell. She really loves the mussels. So the fact that blue-tongued skinks are such an intelligent animal is both a pro for me. I think it's awesome, but it's a con for some people because you have to mentally stimulate them, which means that their environment, their enclosure, should in some way be mentally stimulating for them, giving them lots of different things like different pieces of cork bark, leaf litter. She enjoys rooting around in it. I take her out a lot and handle her and take her into different environments. I do not let her interact with any of my other pets. That is a bad idea, especially if you have dogs or cats. In general, don't do that. But yeah, so she gets to come out lots, explore different environments. I make sure everything feels nice and safe for her. This summer, I'd like to get her out in the sun a little bit, but we'll see. She likes to, like I said, burrow underneath my beanbag chair because she can't really burrow in her enclosure due to her missing most of her fingers and toes. So those are things you have to think about. Now, it's awesome to have a smarter reptile. I really like it. Is a blue-tongued skink a very smart reptile? No, but she's definitely the smartest reptile I have. I can guarantee you that. My other ones are not very smart. Today. Look at her. Speaking of rescues, hey, me little rescue catty. So all these things that I think, kind of like the Macho Man video, all these things that I think are amazing about blue-tongued skinks and Kenyan sambos, other people see as downsides. So that's why it's so important to do research into the animals that you think you want to have, because all the things that I think are amazing, other people might think suck. Feeding a really varied diet might be a lot of work for somebody and they're not interested. You know, all these different humidity requirements and things like that, like the terms like beginner and non-beginner. But this is an animal that you really have to know and really well research before you think about purchasing one. And they definitely can bite. They're not one of the animals that most people are prone to it, but each animal has a different temperament and personality. Lucille has a pretty big head on her, like some big jaws. And you know, whenever people say, can it bite? Which people have said about literally every animal I've ever owned. The answer is, it has a mouth, don't it? If you've ever seen that video. So yeah, it has a mouth. It can bite. And also, you have to be gentle with animals. So if you're scared that these animals are gonna bite, those are the instances where you might drop an animal or mishandle it, and that animal can get hurt. So even if that animal isn't going to bite you, that fear can actually be dangerous to the animal. So it might be important to meet full-size blue-tongued skinks before you buy one, because they are a big lizard, and owning a big lizard is awesome. It's so cool. And they're not particularly active. Like, they're not really that crazy active. They're a bit lazy, but they do like to roam around a bit with their little arms. I love Lucille. She is a queen. She is so freaking cool. And she has a blue tongue. I have so many pictures of me with a blue tongue because I really like blue raspberry slushies. And especially during the summer and during this event we have in Calgary called Stampede, I pretty much literally subsist off of blue raspberry slushies, blue raspberry snow cones, blue raspberry everything. So I always have a blue tongue and I think it's very cute. Lucille is just a dream to own. It's really unfortunate that whoever had her before didn't keep her in the proper conditions. Like I said, is the blue-tongued skink the right one for you? I literally have no idea. Not a clue. That's up to you. But she is so awesome. And every day owning her is an absolute joy. I am thankful. You know, when I saw the picture of her go up on the rescue website, I was not supposed to be getting another reptile, not according to me, but I saw her picture and I instantly showed my boyfriend and I'm like, if I can get her, I'm gonna get her. I just instantly fell in love with her and she was meant to be my baby. You know, I have taken her to the vet. Her exotic vet bill actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was when she had her respiratory infection flared, and her eyes did swell up and it was very hard. You know, owning animals, that is always the reality of owning animals. Another thing about blue tongue skinks is they can live a long time. Like, I'm pretty sure they can live to like 30. So people are like, oh, isn't she old? That she's like 7 or 8? And I'm like, I'm gonna have her for a lot longer. And that makes me so excited because I love her so much. She has actually just brought me so much joy over the past around 6-7 months of owning her. I feel like the luckiest skink mom in the world, and I'm happy that I could share that with you today and handle her, which was requested. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!